How to become fluent in English. As a teacher who has taught English for many years, I have met many types of students. From young children to adults with families, jobs, and busy lives. Some of them came to class after working long hours. Some came after taking care of their children. And some came with tired eyes because they had little sleep the night before. Even with these challenges, all of them shared the same dream. They wanted to become fluent in English. They wanted to speak with confidence, understand movies, talk with people from other countries, write messages without fear, and feel proud of their progress. Because of this, I always try to speak honestly and simply with my students. I know life is not easy. Learning is not easy. And English sometimes feels like a mountain. But even mountains can be climbed if you take one step every day. Becoming fluent is not about being perfect. It is not about speaking fast or knowing thousands of difficult words. It is about communicating clearly, understanding the other person, and using simple language to express your ideas. Many students think fluency belongs only to people who are talented or smart. But that is not true. Fluency belongs to the student who continues learning even when life is busy. Even when they are tired. Even when they feel shy. And even when they are afraid of making mistakes. When I watch students speak, I can see their emotions before they say a word. I see the student who wants to speak but is afraid of being wrong. I see the student who begins a sentence and stops in the middle because they forgot a word. I see the student who looks at the floor instead of at their partner. I understand these feelings well. Because every student in the world experiences them. Even students who speak well today once felt the same fear. As their teacher, I always tell them that fear is normal. Mistakes are normal. Forgetting words is normal. Fluency does not come from avoiding mistakes. Fluency comes from using the language again and again until the fear becomes small and the confidence becomes big. A simple sentence spoken with courage is better than a perfect sentence that stays inside your mind. This is something many students forget. So I remind them often that fluency is not a test. Fluency is a skill, learned slowly with practice, repetition, and patience. Every student starts with simple vocabulary. Words for family, food, everyday activities, feelings, and places. These words may look basic, but they are powerful. With a 1A2 vocabulary, a student can express almost anything by using simple structures. I have seen students talk about travel, dreams, work problems, and personal stories using only basic English. When they try, they discover they can say more than they thought. This discovery gives them hope and motivation. One student once told me, "Teacher, I only know simple words. I cannot say anything." I asked her to try. She talked slowly, but she talked clearly. She explained her day, her job, her family, and her goals in simple sentences. When she finished, I said, "You just spoke for 5 minutes. You see? You can already communicate." She smiled because she realized that fluency does not start with big words. Fluency starts with courage and simple sentences. Many students think they need advanced grammar before they can speak. But the opposite is true. Speaking teaches grammar more naturally than grammar books. When you speak, your brain begins to understand the rhythm of English, the patterns, and the correct order of words. This is why I encourage my students to speak from the beginning, even when they know only a little. Listening is another important part of fluency. When a student listens to English every day, even for a short time, their ears slowly learn the music of the language. They begin to recognize sounds, sentence patterns, and expressions. They begin to understand English without needing to translate every word. I always tell my students to listen to simple English videos, easy stories, and slow conversations. Listening does not need to be difficult to be effective. A student who listens 20 minutes a day learns more than a student who listens 1 hour every 2 weeks. Because daily listening builds a strong habit. When students listen often, they begin to think in English. Their brain becomes familiar with the language, and fluency slowly grows. Many students are surprised when they realize that they understand more than they thought. They say, "Teacher, I understood almost everything in the story." And I tell them, "Of course you did. Your brain is learning even when you don't notice." Speaking is the part that scares students the most. But it is also the part that creates fluency. When I teach, I watch students slowly open up. The quiet student begins to speak a little more each week. The shy student tries to answer questions in front of the class. The unsure student becomes more confident when they see progress. I tell them that speaking alone is a great way to practice. They can speak in front of a mirror, describe their actions while cooking or cleaning, or talk to themselves while walking. These small habits make English part of their daily life. When English becomes part of daily life, fluency grows naturally. Another useful method is shadowing, where a student listens to a sentence and repeats it at the same time. Shadowing helps pronunciation, speed, and confidence. It feels strange at first, but after a few days, students notice improvement. They begin to sound more natural, and they enjoy the progress. Reading is also important. I tell students to read simple books, easy news, children's stories, or beginner English blogs. Reading teaches without pressure. It shows words in natural sentences, teaches grammar without rules, and helps students understand how English works. Even 10 minutes a day can make a difference. When a student reads regularly, they gain more vocabulary, more knowledge, and more confidence. I often give my students small reading tasks, and they always learn something new. Writing is another tool that helps build fluency. A simple journal is enough. Students can write about their day, their plans, their feelings, or anything they want. Writing helps the brain think in English. It also helps students organize their thoughts and build stronger sentences. Some students write only 3 or 4 sentences at first, but after a few weeks, they write longer paragraphs. This slow growth is beautiful to see as a teacher. Grammar scares many students. They say, "Teacher, grammar is too hard." But A1 A2 grammar is simple and more than enough for fluency. Students only need basic tenses, simple questions, common prepositions, and basic patterns. They do not need advanced grammar to speak well. I always remind them that grammar becomes easier when they listen, read, speak, and write. Real practice teaches grammar naturally, slowly, and gently. Students should not wait for perfect grammar before speaking. Speaking helps grammar improve. Thinking in English is another secret. Students who always translate speak slowly. Students who think in English speak more naturally. This does not happen in one day. But students can train their brain by describing simple things in English, asking themselves small questions, and answering in English, even silently. Over time, English becomes a normal part of their thinking. Fluency becomes easier when students bring English into their daily environment. They can change their phone language to English, label objects around the house, watch English videos, listen to English music, or read simple articles. These small actions help their brain stay close to the language. In the end, the most important things are patience and consistency. Students often feel frustrated because progress feels slow. But learning a language takes time. Some weeks will be fast, some slow. But every day a student practices, they move forward. I always tell my students, you can become fluent, you just need time, practice, and courage. As students continue their journey toward fluency, the most important thing I try to teach them is that progress often happens quietly. Like the way a small plant grows. You cannot see the plant changing every minute. But after many days, many mornings, many nights, you suddenly see that the plant is taller, stronger, and more beautiful. English learning is exactly the same. You may not feel progress every single day. But after weeks and months of simple effort, your English becomes more natural. Your confidence becomes stronger, your understanding becomes deeper, and your words become clearer. As a teacher, I have watched this transformation many times, and it always brings me joy. I know how hard my students work, even when they feel tired, busy, or unsure. I know that some of them learn English after long hours at their job or after taking care of their children. This is why I always tell them that slow progress is still progress. And small steps still move you forward. Some students worry about forgetting words. They tell me, "Teacher, I learned this word yesterday, but today I cannot remember it." I smile because this is normal. Every language learner forgets words. Even native speakers forget words. The brain learns through repetition. When you see a word once, it enters and leaves quickly. When you see it again and again, it begins to stay longer. When you use it in your speaking, writing, and listening, it becomes part of your language. This is why I encourage students to review vocabulary regularly. Not just memorize it for one day. You can use flashcards, simple notebooks, or apps to keep the words alive in your memory. And you do not need hundreds of new words every week. Even 10 words a day, if practiced well, can change your English over time. I once had a student who worked as a driver. He told me he had almost no time to study. But he listened to English every day while driving. He repeated simple sentences while waiting for passengers. He read short texts on his phone during breaks. He said these short moments were enough to help him think in English. After a few months, he improved more than students who studied one day a week but did not practice daily. This taught me something important. Valuable progress does not require a lot of time. It requires consistent time. 5 minutes of English every day is better than 1 hour every week. When English becomes part of your daily routine, fluency becomes possible for everyone. Another challenge many students face is speaking with other people. Some feel shy because they think their accent is not good. Some feel afraid because they think their grammar is weak. Some worry that people will judge them. As a teacher, I always explain that accents are natural. Every language has many accents. And accents show where you come from. Having an accent does not mean your English is bad. It means you speak more than one language, which is something impressive. I also tell them that native speakers usually do not care about perfect grammar. They care about understanding and connection. What matters most is that you try to communicate. People around the world appreciate effort, courage, and kindness. If you speak with a friendly attitude, most people will listen, help, and support you. Students sometimes ask me how to practice speaking if they have no partners. I always say that you can still practice in many ways. You can speak alone, speak to the mirror, shadow videos, record your voice, or read texts aloud. You can join online conversation groups or find a friend who also wants to learn. Speaking is like training a muscle. If you use it often, it becomes stronger. If you avoid it, it becomes weak. Even when you speak slowly, even when your sentences are simple, you are building fluency. I have seen many shy students become confident speakers simply by practicing small speaking habits every day. Listening is another skill that grows beautifully with daily practice. Students who listen to English regularly begin to understand new words even before learning them. They start to recognize the rhythm of sentences, the position of words, and the natural melody of English. They also begin to think in English because their ears become familiar with the sound. I tell my students to choose materials they enjoy, like stories, easy podcasts, children's shows, or slow English news. Enjoyable listening is powerful because it feels like entertainment, not study. When learning feels enjoyable, students continue more easily. Reading also helps students understand grammar without stress. When you see the same patterns many times, your brain understands them naturally. Students who read often begin to write better sentences without thinking about rules. They begin to understand tenses through examples, not memorization. Reading also introduces new vocabulary and context. Instead of learning a word alone, you learn how it behaves inside a sentence. This is why I always recommend simple reading materials. You do not need difficult books. A1 A2 stories are excellent for building fluency. Writing is a skill that many students ignore, but it is extremely helpful. Even a short paragraph each day trains your thinking in English. When you write, you create your own sentences instead of repeating someone else's. This creative thinking is part of fluency. A student does not need to write long essays. Even a simple daily journal helps. Writing about your day, your ideas, your plans, your dreams, or your learning experience can make English feel more personal. When English becomes personal, learning becomes easier. One of the biggest steps in fluency is learning to think in English. Students who translate everything take longer to speak. Their sentences break, their mind becomes slow, and conversation becomes difficult. But when a student begins to think directly in English, even simple English, speaking becomes natural. Thinking in English can start with small moments. You can describe simple actions in your mind, ask yourself questions, or comment on things you see. For example, you can think, "The weather is good today," or "I am going to work now," or "I want to eat something later." These small moments help the brain build a direct path to English. With time, this path becomes strong. A helpful way to learn is to surround yourself with English in your environment. Changing your phone language to English is one easy method. Another is labeling objects in your room with their English names. You can also write small notes or reminders in English. Listening to English songs, watching English videos, and following English pages online all help your brain stay close to the language. These small details create an English-friendly environment that supports your fluency goals. As a teacher, the part one love most is seeing students grow in confidence. In the beginning, many of them speak quietly, sit at the back of the room, or avoid conversation, but week after week, they begin to change. Their voice becomes stronger. Their eyes look more confident. Their sentences become longer. Their understanding becomes faster. They begin to enjoy English instead of fearing it. When a student enjoys English, fluency becomes much easier. Enjoyment is the strongest fuel for learning. Students often ask me how long it takes to become fluent. I always give the same answer: it depends on your habits. A student who practices a little every day becomes fluent faster than a student who practices a lot but only once in a while. A student who listens daily, speaks often, reads regularly, and writes weekly will progress faster than they imagine. A student who learns with joy will learn even faster. There is no magic number of hours. There is only the simple daily effort that builds fluency piece by piece. In the end, becoming fluent is a personal journey. It is not a competition. It is not a race. It is not a test. It is a slow and meaningful process that teaches you patience, confidence, and communication. As your teacher in this long text, I want you to remember that you are capable of fluency. You do not need perfect grammar. You do not need difficult words. You only need simple English, strong habits, and a brave heart. Fluency is not for special students. It is for every student who keeps going. When you speak, be proud of every sentence. When you listen, enjoy every word. When you read, take your time. When you write, express yourself. When you make mistakes, smile and continue. Your journey to fluency is not only about English. It is also about learning to trust yourself. If you continue day by day, you will one day look back and say, "I am fluent now." And you will know that you earned it through dedication, patience, and courage.